Joining us again, Carol Giacomo, a member of the editorial board of the New York Times, and Gideon Rose, managing editor of Foreign Affairs magazine. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks.
Let's begin with Iraq. What is driving this uptick of violence? We thought things were doing well. Now we've had this terrible spate of bombings back to back.
It's very worrisome, not entirely unexpected. Clearly there are Sunni insurgents who are trying to take advantage of the fact that the United States is preparing to withdraw significant forces from Iraq. But there's also a lot of unresolved political tensions in the country, partly because the Shiite-led government hasn't met its obligations to the Sunni community in terms of bringing them into the police force, security force, jobs in general.
But as Americans, we thought things were going well. We're pulling our troops out. We're getting ready to leave.
Well, there are always two questions about the surge and related policies and other developments, which was, one, would they work in the sense of providing security and a breathing room for other things to happen? And then second, would the security situation, if it improved, lead to political improvements? And what we've seen is that the first part did happen better than many of us thought it would, but the second still is up in the air, as Carol was saying. And so the question here is, you have a little more security, you have a little more stability and order, but the fundamental political conflicts inside Iraq about who is going to have power, how is it going to be shared evenly, how do you get buy-in from all the groups, still is up in the air. And the question here really is this a tail-end bombing that is not forward-looking but a reflection of previous consequences and fights and so forth, or is it the start of a new wave of real violence that reflects something major to come? And we just don't know yet.
Which is it?
Oh, we don't know yet. I mean, to the extent that the central government really isn't doing enough to try to reconcile with the Sunnis, that remains a long-term problem.
If Iraq starts to go south again, it's going to be back at the top of the news list, and all the other problems won't have gone away. So the Obama administration better pray that this is not a harbinger of real trouble to come, because if it is, their nightmares come true.
Mm-hmm. Well, another area that is considered to be a nightmare scenario for the United States, of course, is Pakistan. Mm-hmm. And this week we've had the Buner area, which has now apparently come under the control of the Taliban, 60, 70 miles away from Islamabad, the capital of that country. The United States very concerned. Why does it not appear, at least in the West, that the Pakistani government is as concerned as we are?
Well, let's look at the component parts. I mean, the president of Pakistan, whose wife was assassinated, has been rather forward-leaning, rhetorically anyway, in terms of saying, I understand, I get it, that there's a problem with terrorism and we have to work to combat it. But, he's not a particularly strong president. There are problems with the military, with the intelligence services, not really understanding that the insurgency is their real threat. They're still focused very much on India, and to the extent that they continue to focus on India, I mean, even now, this offensive from the Taliban over the last couple of days, they sent out just a couple of hundred of very poorly trained Frontier Corps forces to try to, combat them, and that's just not going to work.
Well, Gideon, what's it going to take?
Well, the events in Buner really are very worrying for two reasons. The first is what it says about the bad guys, the local Taliban. The previous deal in the Swat Valley was a form of appeasement. The government and the security elites said, we'll let you have Swat if you keep peace and make things stable there. And appeasement isn't always a bad idea, but it has to be able to work for it to be considered viable. And what this move into Buner means is that appeasement isn't working, that the SWAT deal wasn't the end of it, it just whetted their appetites for more conquests. And that's very worrisome. It means you can't appease them, you can't give them and satisfy them unless they give the whole state. The second thing is, as you say, is that the Pakistani security elites don't seem to recognize this as a major threat. And frankly, the best Pakistani experts that I know of are all very puzzled by this, because it's dramatically clear to pretty much everybody outside Pakistan that the dalliance that the security elites have been having with the insurgents for their own reasons, to fight India, to fight Afghanistan, to give themselves a lifeline after the United States leaves, has gotten out of control and may be threatening the fundamental sources of stability in Pakistan. But the senior elites in the country don't seem to believe that.
Well, I'm not so much worried about the generals. Most of them seem to have a Western lean, and they have certainly been trained by the West. It's the junior leadership within the military that I'm concerned about, whether they've been infiltrated or what their feelings are towards the Taliban.
Well, there's a question about exactly how they feel. I mean, some of them do have sympathies towards the more hardline Islamists. But the truth is they're led from the top, and the one really functioning institution in Pakistan is the military. And so if there is any hope of trying to save the country from the insurgents, it's going to have to be the military, but they need political leadership as well.
Do you think we're overblowing the fear here in the West, or is it?
I don't think so. I think this is very, very worrisome. And again, if the Swat Valley deal had remained calm and ended a problem, that would have been at least debatable. But the very fact that soon after you just gave them someplace, they went and tried to take the next place and succeeded, that's not a good sign.
But that wasn't the first deal. There had been others that had fallen as well.
We're going to move on just before we run out of time. I want to talk about the election in South Africa. The ANC appears that it's going to win. Jacob Zuma is going to have control. Is that a good thing for South Africa?
That's a hard question. I mean, he is a flawed leader.
You got less than a minute.
Yeah, okay. He's a flawed leader. It would be better if South Africa, being the important country it is, both politically and economically to Africa, if it had more competition in political leadership.
And the ANC did not win everywhere. The Western Cape, which is very important financially and otherwise to the nation, that actually is going to Helen Zille, the mayor of Cape Town. Is that a good thing?
Yes, because looked at on its own terms, the election was a massive victory for the ANC and for Zuma. But looked at in perspective over the course of the last few elections, the ANC's percentage has gone down, the opposition party's percentage has gone up. And although they still have a two-thirds majority, the fact that the Democratic Alliance was able to, looks like able to take the Western Cape, means that they will have a platform to show what they can do. And if they can do a good job in administering this crucial province, it's possible that you'll move towards a more balanced system electorally in the future.
Got to leave it there. Gideon Rose and Carol Giacomo, thank you very much for joining us.